All right, hey, good morning, Armory. It's Dane coming at you with another Daily Dwell video. But before we get into that, just wanted to update you on what's been going on in my life, so you know some progress that I've been making on my projects, because I've got a lot of time for projects right now. So let me show you this one. I asked you guys if there was a way to pick a lock, and sure enough, someone came to the rescue and gave me some suggestions. And sure enough, with the hairpin, some YouTube videos, and a little knowledge now of how to pick locks and how locks work, specifically old school locks like that. That and some brute effort and a crowbar, and I was able to definitely get it open. So I'm excited about that. Also, wanted to update you with what's going on in the yard. As of this morning, we totally got rid of those piles. If you remember the giant pile of dirt and wood chips, it's all in there. What? Yeah, so excited. And no, I didn't have enough. You can see, didn't have enough wood chips. Got the same amount of compost as I did the wood chips, and it wasn't even close to the same. As soon as it dropped, I was like, that doesn't look right. And I definitely was going a little bit thicker with the wood chips than the compost, so it didn't go all the way. So I'm gonna need to order some more, but maybe after COVID-19 and we make sure we have money again. So we'll see. All right, but for today's Daily Dwell video, it was we were reading in Matthew chapter 23. Nope, not 23. Finishing out chapter 22. And it's kind of a continuation of the beginning of chapter 22. If you didn't watch that, Jacob had a great video on that yesterday. Make sure to read through, even if you already did, read through it again, the beginning of Matthew 22, before you come to verse 23, which is where we start reading, because it's kind of a continuation of what was happening there. And basically, in the first part of it, the Pharisees and a couple of people are coming up to Jesus, asking questions of him, trying to trip him up, trying to mess him up, catch him in some difficult question, and of course Jesus isn't caught. They really didn't believe he was the Son of God, quite clearly, just from constantly asking him these ridiculous questions. But some of them are good questions. They're tough questions, but Jesus rocked it. But yeah, this is today's reading was beginning in verse 23. Now it's the Sadducees' turn. Now the Sadducees, they're different than the Pharisees. They held a lot of different beliefs. They didn't believe in a resurrection. They kind of thought that this life, this world was it. And then they also they only held the first 5 books of the Bible as canon. So the Torah was their only Bible. Essentially, they didn't have anything, Joshua on. They didn't believe those to be scripture in the same way. So they had some funky beliefs, and they wanted to catch Jesus. They posed this hypothetical question to him about marriage and the resurrection, trying to get Jesus to understand that there couldn't be a resurrection, or things just wouldn't work if there was. And it was from the Old Testament, from the laws of Moses. There's this weird obscure law where if a woman dies if a woman's married to her husband, the husband dies, then she becomes the younger brother's wife. And then she's supposed to, have a son, bear the son, and then the son carries on the name of the original husband. And anyway, that there's a lot into that. I mean, there's part of the story of Ruth is about that, but there's a lot involved with that. Basically, Jesus is saying, you guys are asking the wrong question. Your question's not even valid, because he says there's no There's no marriage, essentially. They're not given in marriage, and it's not like that in the resurrection. He refers to us being like the angels. So he says they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. So a lot of people take that to mean, well, angels clearly must not be married, and maybe we won't be either in heaven, and that's fine for a lot of people. For me, that really makes me sad, because I really like my wife and would like to spend eternity with her married. And so that's really, I don't like this passage because of that. And I know for a lot of people, they like the passage because of that, because their relationship with their spouses and all that great. That makes me sad. But here's the thing, and I think if we are going to take it with that interpretation, then what that could mean is, if we're not married in heaven, we'll be forgiven of all of our sin. We'll have an understanding of what that forgiveness means, and I believe that's going to enable us to forgive in ways that we would not even be able to forgive in this life. And so the hurts and the harms that we might come across from our spouse here will be completely healed, and then also forgiven, and we'll be able to forgive in a way that's impossible, perhaps for some, to do in such a way here on earth. And so I believe that the friendships that we're going to have in heaven are going to be deeper and greater and better than anything that we can experience here on earth, because there won't be sin. Also, it's pretty clear Jesus refers to himself as the husband and the church as his bride, which means the truest, deepest, best relationship we're going to have in the resurrection is going to be our relationship with Jesus. And so in that way, we'll be married to the King, and that will be the greatest relationship that we'll have. And all of the other relationships, maybe they'll be way better than what we have here on earth. And so that could be a little bit of hope about if we're not married, well, maybe it'll be better than any marriage we could experience here on earth. So that's a sidebar from what I was thinking about this morning. He points that out, like, hey, you're not even asking a legitimate question. But also he throws this back at them, this concept of the resurrection of the dead. He's saying, you have you not read what it was said to you by God? And this is interesting. He points out to them what was said in the Torah. So he uses the section of scripture that they do know, that they do affirm, and says, this is what God says about the resurrection. And he says, I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac. I am the God of Jacob. And he says this to Moses. He says this to people throughout the Torah. And when he's saying this, he's not saying, I was the God of these guys. I was the God of that guy, but he's dead, he's gone. So now I'm your God. No, I am. He's still with them. He still is their God. And so I like that he uses what they know, what they do believe and affirm, and he uses that to bring them around to the idea of the resurrection, around the idea of truth. And really, the reason why he was there was to give them life. And so that was cool. Then the Pharisees again try to trap him. One of the lawyers gives him a good question about the greatest commandment, and we know that Jesus' response to that is love God, and then the second is love your neighbor, and then all of the law and the prophets are summarized by those two. So great. And then after that, the Pharisees are gathering together. Jesus asks them a question, and he poses a question to them. Basically, it comes from one of the Psalms where David refers to the Christ as his Lord. And Jesus says, who do you believe the Messiah is? They're like, who is he the son of? And they're like, oh, he's the son of David. He's like, well, then how does David say my Lord to his son, someone that's going to come after him? And leaves them, scratching their heads like, well, I mean, a whole bunch of people had just been calling him the son of David throughout, even little children. And so they're like, we don't like that answer. We don't like that answer. We don't like that question. And so he just asked him that question. And then at the end of it, I like it because it says, no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day did anyone dare ask him any more questions. It's like, okay, that didn't work. We're done asking questions to this guy. So my takeaway from this morning was this, that the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they've been asking Jesus questions, hard questions, and really questions that were meant to trap or meant to attack. They were questions made in doubt and maybe fear and hurt and frustration. But Jesus still answers their questions. And the times when he doesn't answer their question, he usually asks them a question or shows them how the question that they're asking is really not the right question to be asking. And I kind of wonder if that's more or less what happens to us when we're asking questions of God, that we're asking because we're hurt or because we're frustrated or because we're angry, or we're asking because we're afraid, we're scared. Sometimes we ask questions of God that aren't really legitimate, or they're not right questions in the attitude, the reasons why we're asking them. And sometimes they are. Maybe it's because we're just hurt and we just want to know, like, God, why? And some of the times we're in doubt when we're asking those questions. And sometimes we legitimately just want to know the answer. I think the lawyer really wanted to know the answer from, I forget which other gospel it was when he asked it. And so there's a whole bunch of different attitudes that we can have coming to the Lord when we ask him questions. And sometimes he will answer those questions. And a lot of the times the way he answers it, we won't like it. We might not like it. It might make us uncomfortable. It might make us even more frustrated. But the thing we have to be careful of, to where we're not like the Pharisees and the Sadducees here, is that we need to hear the answers that he gives and trust him with those answers. And then the times when he asks us questions, we need to actually seek the answer to those questions and be okay with the answers to those questions. And so as we ask those difficult questions of the Lord, it's sometimes the ones that are just made out of hurt or frustration. He hears us. He knows that. He knows where we're coming from. They're not taking him off guard, just like the Pharisees weren't. He wasn't taken off guard by them. And he really does love us. And sometimes he'll answer us. Sometimes he won't. And then we have to wonder why. And sometimes he'll pose a different question to us that will really leave us wondering about the heart, the attitude that we had in asking the question. So I guess my thinking for today was, it's okay to ask questions. And even when we ask them in a way that's not right in our heart, the Lord knows, and he'll meet us where we're at, and he'll use what we do know and affirm. He'll use that to lead us to him. The question still will come down to, are we going to listen? Are we going to trust him? And we got to trust him each and every day, every question, every difficulty. We have to learn and come to trust him in these things. So that's what I was thinking in the reading from today. I was stewing on it while I was shoveling stuff out there and getting things cleaned up around here. So hope you enjoyed it, and even if you didn't, oh well. Hope you're enjoying the reading with me, and we'll be back tomorrow with tomorrow's Sunday, so we'll be listening to church live stream, and then so feel free to comment, leave a comment, and we'll catch those, and hopefully see you guys. Well, we'll do a Zoom meeting on Tuesday, and then I'll really see all of you junior hires, but the rest of you, give me a call or something. Let me know how you're doing. I'll leave a comment. Love you guys. Bye.